Welcome to Healing Echoes, Rebuilding Life After Trauma and Abuse. I'm excited to introduce Danielle Vega Wright, a compassionate soul on a mission to transform lives through her initiative, Cultivate Yourself. Today, Danielle takes her first step into the podcast world, and her journey is as touching as it is inspiring. Danielle's journey isn't just about building a business. It's about connecting with people on a deep personal level. She understands those moments of self-doubt, anxiety, and uncertainty because she's been there too. It's her own vulnerability that gives her work an unmistakable authenticity, and it's her mission to guide others through similar paths of self-discovery. With unwavering commitment, Danielle offers nurturing and safe space where you can connect with your inner voice and unlock your innate strengths. Her desire to make a significant impact in people's lives is deeply rooted in her personal experiences, infusing her coaching with empathy and genuine understanding. Join us in Danielle's podcast debut for a heartfelt conversation about transformation, vulnerability, and the boundless potential for healing and growth. Hey, Danielle.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too shabby, thanks. Another
Um,
Tuesday.
yeah, I'm so glad that your podcast debut is on my podcast. I feel special.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited about the space that you're providing here at Healing Echoes. And yeah, I'm loving to be a part of it. So thank you.
Okay, of course. Thank you. So I'd like to start with you just kind of telling us a bit about yourself, your experience with trauma, and then kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, so trauma, my old good friend that I always refer to. I think before I even wanted to get there, I really just wanted to just emphasize to everybody that's out there that trauma comes in so many different ways and points. And for me on my journey, I lived a life thinking that trauma, I wasn't even in a trauma or I had a traumatic experience. And so that in itself took my journey down a totally different road. So I just want to first get it out there that no matter what you're going through, or you may think that you're going through, you are going through it. And that in itself needs to be spoken about. That's it, just plain and simple on that one. But in
Absolutely.
regards, yeah. But in regards to me, I feel like I was saying, it started out from birth. I just always felt that I had been traumatized, but I just didn't understand where it was coming from, right? Because I come from like a beautifully loving family. They're super supportive.
Mhm.
So on paper, I kick ass. Real life was rough to explain
Right.
and understand. So, I think that journey of just being told, and again, it was into my 30s when I finally realized how far back and what trauma looked like. And for
Mm.
me, that was, it started off with my father's mother basically just always telling me how fat and ugly and I wasn't ever going to amount to anything and that people don't love me
Mhm.
and you just I just never it was just absolutely an ideology that I subscribed to. I was all about it, and even then, even today, it's still a reminder.
Mhm.
But I think again, I regret in regards to me and trauma in my life. Let me also just preface that I don't regret a thing. I think that life is beautiful. It might be really hard sometimes,
Mhm.
but there's always a reason and a purpose behind it. And I think what I'm super stoked about sharing is that that journey can be really beautiful. So,
It absolutely can. Yeah.
oh, and where I am now because of that. I mean, again, long time coming,
Yeah.
and a journey. But I think when I first started to realize that we have that inner voice, that inner strength, what that even meant, what it looked like to me, made me really realize that I was a product of the 80s,
Mhm.
right? I like to say that we didn't have Google. My parents didn't have it. Our parents didn't have it. They had the Encyclopedia Britannica and the doctor's word.
Yeah.
You see like a crazy rambunctious kid running around, all sorts of expressing herself, but not necessarily communicating it properly because I didn't understand where it was coming from, right?
Right.
My parents looked to the doctors for help and guidance. And, unfortunately, that guidance, led me down a road of where, those weren't really experiences that were happening to me, but
Mhm.
people just assumed. So the trauma really goes deep. And then like you go through that journey too with your parents, right? For the longest time, I didn't realize how angry, how much I resented them for bringing me into a world that I didn't think that they actually were protecting me from. It's like,
Mm,
well, I didn't ask to be here, and now
right.
now I'm out here on my own. This is nuts. I can't. How am I
Yeah.
going to navigate this,
Hmm.
right? So I think that it's a beautiful thing now that we have a world where, okay, Google does exist. I love it. I've got friend moms, my girlfriend said there, well, we don't put the kids on the gluten, because that'll help bring down the ADHD. Dude, I'm pumped about this. You know what I mean? If it's a form of help without just assuming that every kid needs to get on medication. And again, I'm not a doctor.
Right.
So there are absolutely times, and including myself, when I needed to be on something.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying that, but the beauty of having a toolbox with all of these other options and opportunities is just, that's what, again, what I'm trying to promote, that there's so much out there.
Right. And we've discussed that before, the kind of the balance between medication and holistic healing, that they both play a role and hand in hand. I think the more, I think that's kind of what you're saying. The more that we've grown, the more knowledge that we've had, we know that medication isn't the only option. And that is beautiful.
Totally. I am walking living proof. I would be vulnerable in saying that I was medicated starting from the age of, I want to say 11 or 12. And up until about 2 years ago, when I met my now husband, we both entered the relationship wanting to be totally honest with each other. And for me, bringing to the table, that meant um, what I felt about myself. And for the longest time, I didn't want to be on medication. And dude, sometimes I was on 9 medications at once.
Right.
How is it that I could stand in front of you or sit in front of you right now and be on nothing? Yet before I needed all of this, right?
Hmm.
And I think it was just like the domino effect, and
Right.
so I'm happy to say that it's been almost 2.5 years that I have not been on any sort of medication for anything. And yeah, do I have some tough days? Absolutely.
Right.
But for me, the ability to feel what I'm feeling, and
Hmm.
now as my journey has allowed me to really understand what that means in those feelings, I'm able to address it more directly than I would have before, or communicate with others around me, because
Right.
that was a big problem too.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think where we are in our healing journey or just in life in general really plays a big role into what healing methods we use. So now if you're completely unmedicated, what holistic tools do you use personally?
Yeah, so gosh, I have so many.
I
Uh,
love that.
Yeah, I'm like, oh gosh, where's my toolbox? So I, definitely it started off with life coaching, hypnotherapy. I'm big into Native American sweat lodges. I love the breath work, and I've been big into visualization lately, But I think the biggest Kickstarter to it all, when I did start to say it out loud, and even when I was writing it for this show, I was like, I'm gonna pitch this to people, but it sounded like such bullshit to me when I first started, was that whole stinking thinking,
Yeah.
that whole, you've got to change it, and then really putting it out there. And I didn't believe it until I did.
Mhm.
And I think the best example is my tattoos. So I'm covered and they all have a meaning. I'm very all about a meaning, right? And I originally said that my tattoos were my scars, my battle scars
Mm.
from from whatever things I've gone through. And she goes, whoa, where are we going with this, right? Why, that sounds kind of like that you're a victim, like that sounds like not a cool thing. It sounds like you're in pain when you say that,
Mhm.
right? Try to switch it up. And I was like, first, I was like, well, that's my feelings. But then I sat for a second and I was like, that whole stinking thing, because I say this all the time, right? And I wear these tattoos with honor and pride,
Mhm.
not that I'm a victim. So when I sat back and I was like, all right, where are we going with this? I'd said that they're now my stamps in my passport. These are all places and things that I have lived through and I've gone to and experienced, but that's just it. I've passed through, and I've got to show for it. And again, they're mine to know, and it feels great knowing that because I love to travel. And whenever I get a stamp on a passport, I'm pumped.
Yeah,
So I view it as that now. I'm like, all right, well, I just got through another thing in life. Stamp, you
yeah,
know. Shout
yeah.
out to Ruby Croak at Higher Art Tattoo, by the way, because she's
Love
my
that.
artist and she's here in St. Pete as well. So just
That's
saying
awesome.
it.
Yeah, changing your point of view and the words that you use, I think are way underrated. People, it does sound cliche, and so they're like, it's not that easy. It's not easy, but once you start doing it, it really does click. So, changing it from, well, there's scars to there's still proof of that experience, but something more positive. Yeah, I mean, I can see where that just completely changed it for
Completely
you.
changed. And again, you said it yourself, it's going to be work. I'm not here to mislead or anybody.
Yeah.
It is not easy. And it's funny because the work, actual work, what needs to be defined, so easy. But the work behind it,
Mhm.
God, it's terrifying. I'm getting goosebumps just now thinking, oh God, what work am I ready to do next? You know,
Right.
but it has to be done. Like, gosh, shucks, but it needs to be done, and there's nothing wrong for anybody to put in work. None of us are perfect,
No.
right? I think the beauty of just even switching your thinking is that you start to understand yourself and you're like, okay, well, why was I thinking that way? Okay, cool, but then I can view it in a better, more impactful, positive way. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think getting rid of that need to be perfect really
Mhm.
does help. We show grace to ourselves, but that ideology of needing to be perfect, needing our situation to be perfect, needing the people around us to be perfect, I feel like it really does stem from society's pressure because there's always all these people around you telling you how it should look, how it should be done. And I feel like you kind of brought up a little bit of society in like mentioning the time that you were born and raised in. I do think society has a big impact on how we heal, if we heal, and the things, kind of that attribute to that. Um, so I would like to hear you speak on currently in the society we live in now, what you think some of the challenges we face as people that are trying to heal with society working against us. What do you feel like some of those challenges are?
So I'm going to go straight to my personal experience with this.
Hmm.
As a New Yorker, I left New York to go to California to get my hippie, holistic, uh, hocus pocus ways, right? And
Hmm.
believe it or not, the state of California viewed it as medical conditions, medical practices such as acupuncture, gua sha, cupping, right? These are all little things that, mental health or any sort of treatments can be costly, right? For the longest time, I stuck and did with the medications because that's what the government, excuse me, that's what my insurance paid for, right?
Right,
And of course, I did other practices in the meantime, but it's difficult. So I feel like if society understood that there was more out there than just medication, right? There's life coaches, there's healers, holistic, what's it called, hypnotherapists, all these different modalities that we pay so much for insurance for, but that's not being covered, right?
right.
So I think if that awareness was brought and really understood, then wow, our society would just propel into greatness. But I think that knowing also yourself, like whether you're a parent, whether it's for you, your partner, does not matter, that there are other ways out there that so you don't have to just take the societal norm and just view it as like, okay, well, I shouldn't bother even giving breath work a try or meditation because it's not going to work,
Right.
right? Um, so I think that misconception really just, yeah, it needs to get out of our minds because it does.
Yeah, it definitely does. That interconnectedness is very important.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly. We discussed that when, and I read that. I super highlighted it because I'm like, that's exactly right. The interconnectedness of ourselves. I think we as a society are also afraid to sit and have that moment.
Mhm.
We don't want to have those conversations with ourselves. And cannot speak on anybody else, but my own experiences is that the difference between now not being medicated and the other years. Sure, I thought I had. I mean, I was super self-aware. But at the same time, now I'm like, oh man, is that really anxiety or is it like I ask myself more questions
Yeah.
rather than just assumptions. And so for that, I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah.
That awareness for myself.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I've always been a very self-aware person, sometimes not in a good way. But when connecting, it definitely changes the questions I ask myself or the way that I ask myself, and that definitely helps. Um, I have noticed a little bit more in our society, people starting to kind of wake up to, for lack of a better term, um, that interconnectedness, knowing that we're starting to realize that our mind, our emotions, our physical body, our spirit, however you want to label it, they're all connected. And if we take care of all of them at the same time, we're all overall better. So I think in some degree we're starting to like realize that, and that's definitely a positive. But in as a society as a whole, we're still not, like you were discussing, like with the insurance companies, it's still only very specific things that they're willing to cover. And unfortunately, the reality is most people can't afford a lot of the things that would really benefit them. That's a major thing that holds a lot of people back, unfortunately. It's held myself back at certain points from even seeking just regular therapy. There was a point I was on government issued insurance and they didn't cover any of that. It held me back for years. I think that's a huge issue that people do not talk about. They're like, just go, see a therapist, get a psychiatrist, get medication, do hypnotherapy. I'm like, do you have any idea how much those things cost?
Facts, total facts. I love it. I think we talked about it too one day. It's like I can't go back to the credit card or the electric company and say, but I had growth this month.
Yeah,
Let me pay you in all of the growth that I made this month. They're like,
right.
no, 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 lights off.
Yeah.
You know, um,
Yeah, like I grew up. I'm a better person. Give me a discount.
oh my gosh. And you had mentioned too grace. I feel like as a society, we don't allow ourselves grace. I'm definitely one of them, because then it's considered selfish. Oh, you're not doing for others, blah, 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 blah. And it's that moment when that take that step back that you start to have all of these other questions and the moment to breathe, and then again, as a society, you just don't allow ourselves that moment. And I'm not going to use the word jealous, but I'm envious. I love when I see somebody who allows that to themselves to take that space in a non-selfish way. And let me tell you how much they do for others because they give. I noticed that. So,
Mhm.
that's hashtag goals over there, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean it's definitely, especially for myself, that was a huge thing as well, was giving myself that grace. Not even forgiveness. Forgiveness was a big one for myself as well, but definitely that grace. And I still struggle with it. My partner all the time is like, you're being so hard on yourself. And in the moments where I give myself the same grace I show everyone else, I'm better for it, and then I can be better for other people. And it keeps showing that it's not a selfish act, because if what you truly care about is being better for other people, you have to be better to yourself first. People really don't understand that it's not selfish. It might
I
feel
had
like it.
I had a coach tell me once, right? We're sitting out there, we're totally doing a session, and he looked at me, and I was going through it. He goes, "Well, what do you want to do right now?" I go, "You mean what do I want to do, or what do I think that I really absolutely need to do?" And he goes, "What do you want to do?" I go, "It is a beautiful day. I want to jump in that water, and I just
Right.
want to enjoy life." And he goes, "Well, then I think you should do it." Instead, I was going to bog it down with all these errands and these things that I thought was going to help propel me forward, but instead, it would have held me back. So I went into that water, and it was awesome, and things fell into place.
Yeah.
So just grace, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you really have to do that. Um, and then I had not noticed, I remembered we had discussed, because I want to talk a little bit more about you personally and your experience. We had discussed, I believe it's Confessions of a Black Sheep.
Yes.
Is that going to be a podcast that you're starting?
Yeah, so
Okay.
for years, um, I always thought I was going to do a book, and that's kind of what held me back. And my business, I'm cultivating and being a life coach. It's wonderful, but I don't necessarily think that I reach everyone and or get their feedback because I want to connect, right?
Right.
So my whole thing is like, who's a black sheep out there? Raise your hand. Like
Right.
it's And we're all black sheep. I know you and I have discussed the first thing you said to me, you're like, oh, get it, I'm one. And our stories are completely different, yet we
Right.
totally identify. And I think that's where this space, no, I know, is where this space is going to be, is where, people are going to be able to both feel excited and it's almost like a little mini black sheep mentorship, like
Hmm.
look how far we've come, even though we felt there's adversities for those little black sheep that are out there that don't know, if they're ever gonna, feel that connectedness. So yeah, I want a safe space for us to just talk about being that black sheep.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, what led you to feeling like a black sheep?
So okay, great. I have an awesome family, right? But
Right.
I'm not like any of them, right?
Mm,
I'm the oldest and the only grandchild, excuse me, granddaughter in the family, and I'm open about just how I like to, I lived life. I just was never kind of following by the beat of their own drum. I went away to school and I did drugs and I went out partied and I lived all of these. I love to travel and my cousins and family are like okay with staying in their little box and their little and I'm not me. I'm like I want the world, right?
right.
Now the love was always there, but I just never felt the connectedness. I never
Mm,
felt like they understood me and why I did the things that I do. I mean, they never even understood that I was going through the traumas, right? So for me, they just looked like,
right.
oh, here's Danielle being Danielle,
Right.
right? But there was a lot more to Danielle, right? And
Yeah.
I said, I'm sure there's a lot to more to you. So
Yeah.
rather than finding out and wanting to understand us, they looked at me in whatever kind of way they just assumed.
Yeah. That surface level.
Surface level, right?
Yeah.
Which by then it's so fake because you're already going through the other Michigosh. So it's like
Yeah.
you're not getting it, right? So you never
Right.
really got me.
Yeah.
So I felt like my whole life I was never like my family. I mean, gosh, I just got married 2 years ago for the first time. Everybody's like already like, oh Danielle, I'll pray for you that somebody, God will find you a man and blah 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 blah. I'm like, I'm really good with that one. Like, I'm happy, but thanks. Like, can I save that prayer for something else?
Yeah.
Rain
Something
check
that
on the
actually needs it.
yeah, exactly, right? But I don't know. So again, I think there's so many of us out there, and I want to hear their stories. I
Yeah.
want to know where they came from and how they're living like out of the adversity of
Yeah. I feel like, the family specifically, as much as a family is supposed to, the idea is that family knows you better than anyone. But I think because we've lived our entire lives with them, they more than anyone know us at just a surface level because they know the random facts about you, your favorite color, what kind of ice cream you like, but it's not usual from me and in my experience witnessing other people that family members really know what their people are really going through. It's kind of more of just on a surface level. So I think I relate to you in that sense. My family always said those things to me. I know you, Caitlin. And I'm like, do you
that.
though? Or do you know the version of me that you grew up with? Because I'm a totally different person than 8-year-old Caitlin or 15-year-old Caitlin. You just know the things that I show to everyone that surface level. Yeah, yeah.
I would love to do the exercise because again, I'm big on our family. I built my family are my friends,
Mhm.
right? And I would love, and I'm sure you would too, if you keep your family question of who is Caitlin, right? How would you describe Caitlin? And then
Mhm.
you give that same question to your friends that you consider family. What a difference, light years.
Oh
I
yeah.
know I've done it, and wow.
Yeah, I've done it. Even as a teenager, I kind of had done that with my father. Because he had said something about knowing me. When I dropped out of high school, actually, we got into a huge fight about it. And he was like, I know you. I know what you need to do with your life because I know who you are. And I was like, really? What do you know about me? And he didn't even speak because he realized in that moment, you don't know me. You know that I'm Caitlin and you know that I'm your daughter, and that's all you know. You don't know anything about me personally. um, so was it your experience? Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you had 1 minute.
Oh no, you're good. Um, uh, hold on, let me find my thoughts.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I do it all the time. It comes with being neurodivergent. um is it your experience with feeling like the black sheep that led you into coaching and kind of your career path? Is that more recent? When did you get into that?
Yeah, so I always felt like I was destined for greatness and like nothing cocky behind it. I just always felt like there was something more bigger than me
Mhm.
out there that I was meant to do. And my whole life, even now, I still no clue. But it is, there's no, there's just no way that I have gone through what I've gone through, to not help others on the other side of this. So I think, yeah, yeah, no, I'm sorry, I just got kind of lost in that moment.
You're good.
Yeah, I just feel like I cannot wait to help others, like
Yeah.
really truly understand their own potential, their inner self, and be confident,
Yeah.
all the things that I wish I had when I was
Yeah. You want to offer that to other people, help them get there.
110%. And the reason why, thankfully being a black sheep, it allowed me to go do these kooky hocus pocus, hippie things that led me, to this. I love my life coach. He has been in my life, and now I don't consider him as just a coach. He is a friend. He's family. And he showed me that, and he understood. Let's stop right there. He saw me and he heard me. For
Mm.
someone to be seen and heard for the first
So
time,
important. Yeah. Yeah. It's so important.
so important, so impactful. So if I could even remotely do that for one person,
Yeah.
dude, that would just make my world.
You want to
So
hold that space for people. And that is beautiful.
yeah, just I need them to be seen and heard. Would like them, whatever they want.
Yeah. I
It's
think
not me.
me and you connected that time at coffee, and I think me speaking up and just actually just verbally speaking, even without saying the actual words, you felt that energy too, because I'm in the same space right now deciding that I want to go into that as well. And I think that energy just drew us to each other. I think that is absolutely beautiful. um
So
and
glad.
I love seeing other people that are just as passionate to offer that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, same, totally same.
So I do want to wrap it up. I just want to ask if there is any like last thoughts you want to give to anybody that might be listening. And then I also do want to make sure that you let us know when your podcast is going to be starting.
I think Cliff Notes, listen to yourself. You have all of the power that you absolutely need all within yourself. Don't be afraid to try to let it out, and don't be afraid, period. Just just be,
Yeah.
right? In regards to my podcast, I'm hoping by the end of the month. So, or what are we? Almost damn near end of October. So I
Yeah,
want
we're
to see
right
what I
smack in the middle.
yeah, gosh, we're about the middle. So I would say probably closer to the beginning of November. I will be posting it on my Facebook page as well as my website, cultivateyourself.com. And I'm really looking forward to people just getting
Yeah.
themselves out there. I might probably even do a kind of questionnaire to see if anybody wants to. So if you're out there and you're listening, by all means, DM me, or just reach out to me via my website, because I do want to hear your stories, and you can be one of the first people on my show.
That's
So that
beautiful.
would be great. But yeah, I just again want to thank you for this time, Caitlin. It was a beautiful space, and thanks for providing it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you.